They are falling all around me. They are falling all around me. They are falling all around me. The strongest leaves of my tree. Every paper brings the news that every paper brings the news that every paper brings the news that the teachers of my sounds are moving on. Death comes and rests so heavy. Death comes and rests so heavy. Death comes and rests so heavy. Your face I'll never see no more, but you're not really going to leave me. You're not really going to leave me. You're not really going to leave me. It is your path I walk. It is your song I sing. It is your load I take on. It is your air I breathe. It's the record you set that makes me go on. It's your strength that helps me stand. You're not really going to leave me. I will try to sing my song right. I will try to sing my song right. I will try to sing my song right. Be sure to let me hear from you.
The song They Are Falling Around Me that you just heard was written and sung by Bernice Johnson Reagan, founding member of the all-woman a cappella singing group, Sweet Honey in the Rock. Thank you for being with us, both here in Washington, D.C. and online, all across the country. We are here to connect with you. And we are grieving America. I am April Miller, a life cycle celebrant.
I am Sally Brucker, a life cycle celebrant,
And will be leading this non-denominational memorial ceremony for COVID-19 victims and survivors here in Washington, D.C.
We come here today holding a heavy grief in our hearts, acknowledging the cost of human lives in our country as a result of COVID-19.
We will not forget that each victim was a loved one with a name and a meaningful life. We come with confusion, anger, pain, love, and memories.
And together we honor the hard stop we have all experienced in our lives. The loss of humanity in this pandemic is immeasurable.
To have a loved one's death be a number or be judged is unacceptable. We come here to offer support, to hold the space for you to grieve and to remember.
To be silent, to listen without judgment, and to heal in your own way.
We are here at the art installation In America Flags. This installation begs the question, in America, how could this happen?
The installation opened on October 23rd with the planting of 219,541 flags.
And tragically, has grown daily as the death toll mounts. Here we are invited to plant a flag in the ground with the name of our lost one, to remember that he or she had a life worth remembering, and we can share that with others. This installation educates and inspires us as a nation to honor and respect the lives lost to COVID-19.
Thank you, Susan Brennan Furstenberg, for your inspiration, fueled by your artistic talent and many years working in hospice care.
You took a deeply felt response and need and turned it into a living memorial.
You created a safe and non-judgmental space for us to collectively mourn and to remember every man, woman, and child taken from us.
We want to acknowledge the volunteers and supporters who devoted many hours to the creation of America Flags. This installation inspired many people to plant flags for those grieving in other parts of the country. We share our deep gratitude to those who were able to step out of their own grief to ensure their flag was planted for people all around the country. While this disease has entered the bodies of many and taken lives of all ages, genders, and races, it has been especially cruel to communities of color, including Native Americans, Latinos, and African Americans. We pause at this moment to acknowledge the loss of Black men in particular by hearing the original poem, Black Men Are Precious, by DC poet E. Ethelbert Miller.
Black men are precious. Black men, black friends having strokes. Black men younger than me. Good men with bad hearts. Men who did not follow their fathers into factories or the post office. Black men who went off to college and pulled themselves up by degrees. Men who did not sink into despair, but lifted their families into new homes. Black men who survived the bullets, streets, and police. Black men who saw the horizon and the stars. They marched as if Garvey held out his hand, not to Ethiopia, but to our hearts. Black hearts, now failing for unknown reasons. Why? Why do we die so young? Why are we not like our grandfathers sitting on the porch rocking away the years? Why are we not the black men returning from the wars and lifting our girlfriends up into wives again? Why do we date this early death? After all the exercise and pills, after the changing diet, why is there such a cruel hunger that appears and takes our years? Black men, my friends resting in their open coffins, waiting for someone to sing, Precious Lord, and take their hand. Black hands, closing with so much love still left to give.
Take a moment now and think of the name of someone you know affected by COVID-19. If you are comfortable, close your eyes and picture him or her. Let us now say their names in unison after the ringing of the bell, followed by a moment of silent meditation until the bell is rung again.
We now share a name and a memory to what would otherwise just be a statistic.
My father, Kevin Taylor, was a great man of faith. He was a man who wore many hats. In fact, he always had on a hat. As a child, I learned from him love for family, God, and country. My father was a family man and a man of service. He adored my mom and was a great friend and provider for all 4 of his children. For years, he mentored others in marriage, fatherhood, and manhood. He exemplified service before self. And from afar, as he fought valiantly for his life, I learned from him forgiveness. This is a lesson I'm still struggling to embrace and personify daily. My dad was one of my best friends and cheerleaders. His career spanned 20 years in the United States Air Force and 23 years managing social services officers and offices in the state of Delaware. In his Air Force career, he worked for years as a casualty assistance officer. For a number of years, he spent time notifying and supporting Air Force families whenever their loved ones died, so they would not be alone. It's very tragic and ironic that because of COVID, my father's only interaction with my family as he passed was over FaceTime, and that was for brief moments. The hospital was very gracious to my family as they honored my request to notify my mother along with me, so she would not have to endure the sorrow of knowing that my dad had passed alone. After my dad passed, I was determined to honor his legacy. I twisted the funeral home's arm, forcing them to notify me and my family when his body left the hospital. This was not something that they normally did. I explained to them that in the military, no man gets left behind, and my family could not be there when my dad passed. So we wanted to be there to honor him when his body left. They allowed us to follow him from the hospital to the funeral home where he was cremated. I sat there the whole time because I felt this was the best way that I could honor my dad in death.
Dear Carl, we miss you so much. The depth of our grief is matched only by the sea of flags we are surrounded by here, each loss rippling across our aching hearts. An outdoor memorial is so fitting for my brother Carl, who loved nature and spent so much of his life outside. As a native Montanan, he couldn't get enough of its majestic mountains, reveling in the Big Sky's beauty and history, and sharing it with others as a guide in the national park. He saved my life when I fell into the Madison River on a family fishing trip. I love nights around our campfires, listening to Carl tell his many stories. Even when Carl was in the city limits, he'd go outside and walk and walk. Sometimes he'd go solo, other times with his beloved bunny Skunky in a cage tucked under his arm. Sometimes he'd be wheeling my father when he was older, covering miles and miles. And when I was home, I'd walk with him, carrying the day pack he gave me emblazoned with the words, "I love you to the moon and back." My brother didn't just love the landscape of nature, he loved all of God's creations, from his wife of 40 years, to his siblings, to his nieces and nephews, to his assorted pets, and to complete strangers. Indeed, Carl thought nothing of driving a car with a duct tape glove compartment while writing a check to a stranger who lost his house in a fire. He sponsored 4 impoverished children while living in a humble trailer. And Carl once paid for a waitress's dental work because, well, she couldn't. It's so hard not to be able to head into the hills with him and do what he admonished me to do all the time. Rise and shine and celebrate every day, Tammy. So thank you for giving me a place and a time to celebrate an amazing man who we miss so deeply, my brother, Carl Welcome Stuckey, Jr.
I lost my husband, Jimmy, to COVID. Our support group is a place to share war stories. They're all horrifying, yet we read each one, mentally noting the similarities and differences. We comfort one another. We rage together. We offer each other advice and an ear to listen. The horror of COVID has eclipsed the loss of our loved ones. The COVID template includes the length of hospitalization, length of ventilation, availability of medical care, or whether or not we were able to say goodbye. Mourners have been robbed of the exercise of grieving the life that was lost, the life that defined them, not what killed them. One that can be celebrated, reviewed, and shared with all those who loved our name on our flag. Thank you for this opportunity, so here I go. The easiest thing would be to list Jimmy's accomplishments. He was a family law attorney who was a trailblazer in the area of adoption and surrogacy. He was an author, writing the first textbook on special education law. He argued a case at the Supreme Court and won. He argued cases that changed case law for his LGBTQ clients. He was passionate about the environment and loved to talk about his work at EPA. What is not easy is to talk about what he left behind. We have 3 children. None of them will be able to do the following things without invoking the memory of their father. Kill a bug inside the house. Scoop it up. Take it outside. Hear incorrect grammar without correcting it in your best stage whisper. Eat a tomato. Say anything bad about their mother. Pick up any stuffed animal without assigning it a name and a personality. Ask a question about American history or politics and not want desperately to hear his take on it. Go to family gatherings and look for him playing with the kids, making some outrageous game that is semi-dangerous. Hear Chubby Checker and the Twist without seeing his gyrations on the dance floor. Build a fire with only one match. Make a speech without imagining him in the back of the room, motioning to slow down. What is excruciating is to talk about my husband. The number of times over the past 6 months that I reflexively turn to his chair to talk about the kids, share my fears, and look for his take on just about everything, only to find it empty. There are so many flags. There are so many devastated people. I hope what people feel when they see this installation is that each flag is not a death. Each flag is a life.
As we comprehend what seems incomprehensible, as we think of the many, let us take time to remember the grandmother, grandfather, life partner, husband, wife, mother, father,
sister, brother, son, daughter,
aunt, uncle, cousin, godparent,
friend, neighbor, co-worker,
leader, teacher, student, first responder,
shopkeeper, essential worker, healthcare provider,
child care provider, artist, advocate, homeless,
caretaker, breadwinner, lonely, storyteller, explorer.
During this past year of self-quarantine and shelter in place, we have faced losses completely alone and cut off from our sick and dying loved ones.
Many of us are waiting until such a time is right for a service to honor our elders, parents, and children. Many of us had to forego traditional funerals, last rites, sitting Shiva, and other customs that bring continuity, closure, and comfort. Our dearly departed was helpless. We were helpless. So many died helpless and alone or among doctors and nurses who also felt helpless.
We could give no loving comfort of touch, of kisses, or special recognition. We could not clasp their hand, speak softly, or communicate using just our tender eyes. Our traditions of sitting by their side around the clock, or packing their room with grandchildren and closest friends, couldn't be. We couldn't make the most of their last days or moments by keeping them comforted and comfortable. Because we couldn't be with them, we couldn't advocate for them, stand guard at their bed, or be informed of medical procedures. We could not say our goodbyes.
We remember their anguish and fragility, overcome by a virus too much for a body to bear. Older ones who had so much more wisdom to impart to us, and younger ones gone from us just as their legacy was taking root. Having to rely on devoted yet overtaxed health professionals to help us connect through devices, and ultimately watching our loved ones fade away remotely, has left indelible scars on our hearts. As one family member related to us, and I quote, "Zoom is no substitute for crying together, a hand held, or even a laugh in person with a beloved friend."
If we come away from here with anything, let it be the understanding and commitment of taking the time to listen to someone's story and to ask someone to listen to ours.
My poem is on grief in a time of pandemic. What I'm learning about grief is that it comes and goes like the shadow in front of me on the afternoon sidewalk. What I'm learning slowly is to welcome it. Morning fog rising from melting snow, and to fear it, knowing it can pool as a hidden bleed from a fall or wake me from sleep like a siren at midnight, and all that conjures. What I'm learning about grief is that I carry it, my brother's last words, his hairbrush in my gym bag, my father's, "Hey there," in my own voice, greeting those I love and wish I could embrace. But I also carry grief as ballast, smooth stones or a shell from a favorite beach in a jacket pocket, comforting to hold when I find them tucked there now and again. And these days, when I place the stories of deceased strangers on an imaginary altar of redbud branch and lilac blossom, with a choir of mourning doves, I know that grief is not just epilogue, but overture. Thank you.
When peace like a river attended my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul. When peace attendeth my way. When sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well, it is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul, with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul. This is a ceremony we never could have imagined. Some call what we have experienced trauma. In truth, that's what it is.
COVID-19 doesn't know our customs, doesn't acknowledge the special pain we bear today, because our rituals as we know them just could not be done. Today we begin to create new ways to mourn together, to pay our respects, and to care for each other. So in the not so distant future, we can be together.
In the words of Maya Angelou, when we shine our collective light together, we are more resilient than when we walk the path alone.
Sing their song, tell their jokes, relate what made each of them unique and special. When we share our loved ones' moments and stories, we shine a light on our suffering so that we may heal in our own time and in our own way.
Please read responsibly now. Within each pause, please repeat the phrase, "We remember you." We remember you by Anonymous. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, in the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter,
in the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, in the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer,
in the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, in the beginning of the year and when it ends,
when we are weary and in need of strength, when we are lost and sick at heart,
when we have joys we yearn to share. Yes, we remember you. So long as we shall live, you too shall live. For you are a part of all who have known you.
Let it be our solemn hope to forge an end to this virus and to cherish the meaning of the lives of those who suffered and are still suffering, both here at home and around our world. Let us not forget about love, for love is what stopped us in our tracks and keeps us going as we continue to live.